Before I begin this short introduction to the collaborative project Futures Beyond Refining, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording on the traditional homelands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac peoples who have stewarded this land and water throughout the generations. Long before my family came to spend the summer on the Fox Islands, members of the Penobscot Nation were here. I respect the traditional values of the Penobscot and the Confederacy and affirm their inherent sovereignty in this territory. I support their efforts for land and water protection and restoration and for cultural healing and recovery. Please pause in remembrance of the tribes of the Wabanaki Confederacy whose lives and land were taken through genocidal strategies of colonial settlement of the land. I offer my respect to elders, both past and present, and am committed to the ongoing work of decolonization in Maine and beyond, including along the Delaware River and Delaware Bay in the Mid-Atlantic region. These locations are central to my talk and make up the traditional homeland of the Lenape Nation. Kingsessing, or Chingsessing, meaning place where there is a meadow. Tinicum, or Tanakonk, next to water. Wikako, meaning peaceful place. These and other toponyms from the Lenape name contemporary places in South Philadelphia. And while Tinicum remains next to water, Kingsessing's meadow and Wikako's peace have been swallowed up and spit out after more than 4 centuries of the settler colonialism and racial capitalism that reclaimed wetlands for use by heavy industry and as residential areas for precarious populations. Today, South Philadelphia's former creeks, marshes, and meadows are almost gone and forgotten. Simultaneously, local climate impacts, including sea level rise, storm surge, and heavier and more frequent rains, are returning water to these low-lying areas. Heavy with centuries of legacy pollutants from oil and coal refining, the water presents a kind of liquid archive, one with few finding aids, catalogs, or guides. We have forgotten what and who has been put here. My introduction to you now to Futures Beyond Refining is one of 3 videos exploring this ongoing collaborative co-created project. The second features community organizers active in South Philadelphia, Mr. and Mrs. Charles and Tammy Reeves, featured in conversation with former student Alexandre Imbot. And the third video features artist Amy Balkin in conversation with me. I've learned tremendously from all our project partners and participants, and I'd like especially to thank student Maggie McNulty, who conducted long-form oral histories very central to this project. And I'd like also especially to thank Martin Promoli and Luna Sarti, who have spent long hours with me thinking, teaching, and otherwise doing environmental humanities work along the Schuylkill. The tidal Schuylkill River in South Philadelphia, flowing past Kingsessing and debouching into the Delaware River, where the Tinicum Marsh once stretched for some 6,000 acres, offers but one example of a forgotten place. Yet it is one all too familiar in the blasted landscapes produced by the economics of carbon-intensive extraction. It, like other examples of Black ecologies, is dotted with islands of hope. The learning experience we developed and guided have been conducted in classrooms, in river neighborhoods, and on the river itself, and they have often involved experiential learning methods. We've undertaken them to probe how, in the midst of ruins, we might maintain enough curiosity to notice the strange and wonderful, as well as the terrible and terrifying. Designing and guiding these place-based experiments in environmental humanities has provided sustained opportunities for reflection on the transformative premise and promise of EH. One often cited definition of EH stresses its ability to create productive friction, quote, between critique and action. That friction has been extraordinarily generative for the learning experiments I have designed and guided to build the transformational learning practices commensurate with the powerful critical concepts at work in EH writing. You can explore some of these learning experiments in the Schuylkill River archive. I believe their implementation to be crucial to make good on the transformational premise and promise of EH. The conceptual vocabulary that EH inquiry is growing draws on concepts developed in diverse disciplines and also in dialogue with traditional environmental and ecological knowledge. Potawatomi philosopher Kyle Powys White has coined the felicitous concept of ecological science fiction, a future-oriented form of knowledge that crosses narrative with evidence-based inquiry, a concept crucial for our experiments in making work that engages communities beyond the academy, and it has been essential to the creation of Futures Beyond Refining. In the few minutes that follow, I offer a behind-the-scenes look at the making of this collaborative project. My time here is very limited, and I'm more than happy to hear from you with questions and comments. I've included a full list of links to project resources on the final slide of this lecture. Futures Beyond Refining began in the aftermath of the nearly catastrophic explosion of what was then the largest and oldest oil refinery on the east coast of the United States in June 2019. As summer sped towards fall that year, I reimagined a graduate seminar, Environmental Humanities, Theory, Method, Practice, to engage with this explosion, its context, and the possible futures for this vast 1,300-acre site. As the first page of this course syllabus advertised, if it comes up, experimental research methods help transcend conventional academic audiences and promote learning with more diverse audiences, humans and others, on campus and beyond. Our work culminates with a collaborative micro-symposium that we will co-design, plan, realize, and document. Our goal is to invite and explore possible futures of the Philadelphia Energy Solutions refinery lands and waters. By the end of the semester, students working in pairs with neighborhood residents residents identified for us by Mr. Charles Reeves had also helped create a neighborhood tour. Together, the working pairs created memory maps, and these became the basis for a walking and driving tour. We toured the vast perimeter of the refinery facility, and here, in a later version of the tour we offered to 8th graders and members of the press, you hear Mrs. Reeves.
It's really scary to know whatever was in that plant is killing you. They lied to us. You ask them today, they'll continue to lie and say it's not harmful. Well, it is harmful. They're harmful. If you're closed down, why are there still fumes coming out of it? So what they said was, oh, they're cleaning the pipes over there. It's not hazardous. They told us it wasn't hazardous. If it's not hazardous, why do you need to do hazardous over it?
Student Maggie McNulty subsequently conducted long-form oral history interviews with the neighborhood guides. These stories are shared in their entirety in the Schuylkill archive, and selected clips feature in the 5-part exhibit that Maggie designed about the neighborhood of Grays Ferry. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves talk at great length about why they agreed to work with academic researchers and their goals for our collaboration in the companion video to this introduction. But one goal that they had includes building connections between neighborhood students and the university. To help realize that, I designed a workshop for 8th graders, inviting them to imagine futures beyond refining. The workshop culminated with the students' creation of short ecological science fictions, postcards sent from the future to elected officials today. Here's just one example.
Dear Donald Trump, I am a 94-year-old man living in what these kids nowadays call hover homes. We have marshals keeping our water blue and clean, boat taxis that take you places, and everyone's swimming in the pools and stuff. Thank you. Well, not really thank you, but you need to help us. From a citizen. P.S. Back in my day, we had wheels. Now we have boats.
Another primary goal of our community partners was the creation of a memorial to life in the shadows of the refinery. As Mr. Reeves stated in his oral history, he wants the site to become a cemetery for everybody who can't afford to be buried. This powerful statement informs recent commissioned work by artist Amy Balkin called Area of Interest. Working with the Reeves and in dialogue with others, Amy created a temporary memorial, a billboard displayed during the month of June 2021 next to the former refinery, visible by cars on the freeway and in the Grays Ferry neighborhood below the highway along the fence line. You will learn more about Futures Beyond Refining in the companion conversations with the Reeves and with Amy. Please check them out and feel free to explore these resources and leave us a comment or a question. Thank you so much.